You're listening to the Fran Halloran Show. We're in segment number 2. I do want to point something out here today before I get our guest on the radio. I got a great text from my good friend Scott. And Scott said, I wanted you to know that since we paid a huge chunk of our rental house mortgage down, we have felt empowered by that decision. My wife is like a tiger now on our debt. Thanks for your advice and encouragement. Scott, I wanted to tell you, you guys are rock stars. You're doing great things. I'm proud to know you, and thank you for making my day. Nothing makes my day more better. I'm not even sure that's the way I'm supposed to say that, but I like mo better. Nothing makes my day mo better than getting some props from some friends and clients. So thank you, Scott. Y'all keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Folks, I have in my office, or have in the studio here today, my good friend Jesse Neer. Jesse Neer owns and operates the Neer Law Firm in Lexington, South Carolina. He's an estate and probate attorney. Jesse, glad to have you this morning.
Hi, Fran. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. We've been wanting to get you on the radio for a while now. Jesse, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I live in Lexington. I, as you said, own and operate Neer Law Firm. I practice primarily in probate and estate planning, which for most folks are not sure what that means. Probate and estate planning is it's an area of the law that deals with death and incapacity, all the sad subjects that people don't want to think about, but it's very important. And in the context of your intentional planning, it's very important.
Absolutely. We completely agree with you, and that's why we kind of partner together in this endeavor. Let me throw a little caveat out here to everybody. We would love to take some phone calls from you today. We're happy to take phone calls, but I do want to kind of just mention this. Jesse is going to be somewhat limited. We don't want him giving what I like to call drive-by advice. If anybody wants to talk with Jesse, you can, of course, call the station today, see if we can't answer some questions, some basic questions over the radio. And if the questions are a little too detailed, we will certainly get your number, and Jesse can call you after the show and talk in some detail. So, but I wanted to start the conversation to really, I want to go down the avenue of talking about wills first. So, Jesse, why is it a will is so important?
Sure. Well, a will is a document that doesn't have to be too complicated, but if you don't have one, things could go wrong. And let me kind of preface that by saying everyone that comes into my office at the end of the day in the estate process, they all kind of tell me the same thing. They say, we never thought our family would fight. We never thought we'd have problems. When you do estate planning, you're not necessarily doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your family, for your children, your spouse.
Good point.
You're doing those things to prevent problems later.
Mm-hmm.
And the starting point for all of that is a will.
Is a will.
And it can be a simple one.
When you say simple, now really, how basic can a will be? Could I write my own will?
Well, you could. Nowadays, anybody can go online and think they know how to do anything, whether it's a will, whether it's a car repair, a repair to their house.
Yeah, sure.
You're taking a risk. Maybe you do it right, maybe it turns out okay, but oftentimes it doesn't. And when you spend your whole life becoming financially secure, building wealth, building assets, paying off your house, when you do all those things, it's pretty dangerous just to assume that everything's going to be okay. And it doesn't take a lot of time or money just to sit down with an estate planning attorney and say, hey, what do I need?
Sure.
Can you help me out?
You know, it's interesting that you say that because, you know, I mentioned in the first segment that if you like Dave Ramsey, you're probably going to like what we try to do on this show. Dave and I differ tremendously on this. You know, one of Dave's big sponsors is an internet kind of web-based legal company. And I have told folks, you know, I love Dave Ramsey, but I'm not leaving the most important document in my life to a kit or to an online service. And not only that, but there's a certain amount of value in the relationship that I have with Jesse and that I would imagine most of your clients have with you. Do your clients call from time to time and and ask for referrals? Do they ask other legal advice? How do you handle that kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime a client comes in and needs my help, I help them not just from a legal standpoint, but also more of a counseling standpoint.
Right.
We talk about legal documents, but we talk about other things as well. A lot of the topics that you cover here on the show, protecting your family, making sure that your children are provided for, making sure that in the event you and your spouse both pass away unexpectedly, what happens to your kids? What happens to your house?
Oh, I remember when Susie and I were dwelling on that question when we were doing our will a few years ago. That's a tough one. I mean, what happens if you both go?
Sure, and most folks don't experience any significant problems with their estates, and most folks are okay. But simply for peace of mind, it's worth the time just to have some basic planning done.
Sure.
And the number one concern, obviously, most folks have is, what's it going to cost? I don't want to spend the money. I'd rather use that money elsewhere. And it's interesting to me what people will choose to spend money on. For example, Black Friday here coming up this Friday. Most people will probably spend more money on Black Friday buying stuff than they will making sure that their life is in order in the event of death or
Yeah,
passing.
if I go to Best Buy and buy a big screen television, I've probably spent more than an initial basic will setup is going to cost me. Wouldn't you think?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, and of course, the television, obviously everybody likes a big screen TV, but I can speak from personal experience. The peace of mind my wife Susie and I felt once we got all this taken care of, it makes you sleep better at night, folks. And that's important as a father of 5, a husband. I wanted to make sure that our ducks in a row. Jesse, if I don't have a will, what really happens to my stuff in my family if I die without a will?
That's a loaded question. The simple answer is probably not what you would have wanted to happen had you done a will.
Really?
In South Carolina, the law predefines where your property goes in the event you've not said yourself in a will where you want it to go. So in other words, if you just think that my spouse will get everything or my children will get everything, you might be right, but chances are you're wrong. Without a will, you're going to have your estate divided up in different proportions among spouse, children. Where it gets really messy is if you have children that are predeceased, or if you have no children at all, a surviving spouse. Your estate is going to be split up in fractional shares all over the place.
And who decides? I mean, who decides how the estate gets fractionalized, if you will?
The law has already decided for you.
Really?
You don't have a say-so.
So in this world where we are all so bent on making sure we dictate our own lives, we want to control this, we want to control that, you're telling me that if I don't have a will, I'm totally giving up control to the decisions that have been made for me by the state of South Carolina.
That's correct. And let me give you a quick example that comes up all the time. Some people choose not to do a will. They have 2 children. One of their children is estranged from the family. They haven't seen him in probably 25 years. They die. They do not have a will. The law says that daughter that you've not spoken with in 20, 30 years is going to get 1/2 of your estate.
What?
Assuming you don't.
So if I haven't talked to my kid in 20 or 30 years and I die, the kid, based on South Carolina law, is still going to get part of my estate.
Going to get part of your estate, that's right.
Unless I outline it in the will.
That's right. A simple will will.
Holy
prevent that from
cow.
happening.
My goodness. How difficult is the process, Jesse, to get a will done? I know we're up against another break. What do we got, Brian?
It's very simple, very easy.
It's very simple.
Easier than you think. Probably 30 minutes of your time.
Folks, we're up against a break here, so we're going to come back in the 3rd segment and talk a little bit more with Jesse about power of attorney and trusts. So please stay with us. 799-TALK, 799-8255. Our guest in studio is Jesse Neer. We'd love to hear from you. You're listening to the Fran Halloran Show. We'll be back on the other side of these messages.